Good day, grade 9 science students. Today what we're learning about is atoms and molecules. Hey, do you remember when we classified matter? Yeah, I think you did. Remember, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space, and matter can be divided into two main groups. What were they again? Pure substances and mixtures. Oh yeah, that's right. Pure substances can be divided into two main groups, right? Can't they? What are those groups? Just take a moment, see if you remember. What about the other two groups for mixtures? What are they? Let's see if we can label them. Sorry for my wonky line there. So pure substances can be elements or they can be compounds. Mixtures can be put into two groups. We call it homogeneous mixture, which is known as a solution. It's one phase, you can't see the difference. Or a heterogeneous mixture, which has more than one phase, you can see the difference. Now, elements, they're on the PT, the periodic table. And the smallest particle that is still an element is known as an atom. In other words, it's not a hard and fast rule, but we can say that if you have an elemental gold, the smallest bit that is still gold is an atom. Okay? Now, a compound is a combination of elements. And we know that the smallest compound that is still that compound, so if you had a sample of water, for example, the smallest thing that is still water is a molecule of water, which is a combination of elements. So let's learn a little bit more about molecules and atoms. So here it's framed a little bit of a different way. We're going to write this in our notes. Each element is made up of only one kind of atom. An atom is one particle of an element. A particle is a small thing. So magnesium, for example, would be like one atom of magnesium would be one particle of a big magnesium piece of metal. Now molecules, on the other hand, are two or more atoms joined together, okay? And they form a molecule. And H2O is an example of that. So when two or more different atoms join together, it's called a compound as well. Okay? So a compound is a little bit different than a molecule. A compound is technically a combination of atoms. Okay? So molecules can contain two atoms or many thousands of atoms. Okay? So technically, we're going to learn about the difference between ionic and covalent. But you can use them pretty much interchangeably at this point in your science career. Compound is almost the exact same as a molecule. If you really care, a molecule is known as covalent. It just has non-metals in it. And an ionic compound is a metal and a non-metal in it. And you call it a compound, not a molecule. So the atoms in a molecule can all be the same kind of atoms or different atoms. Okay? So, for example, oxygen is a molecule. This is elemental oxygen. It is an element because it's the purest form of oxygen that we have, O2, but it has more than one oxygen, so therefore it is a molecule. Now, this is baking soda, sodium hydroxide. It's made up of the elements sodium, hydrogen, carbon, and 3 oxygens there. And that is made up of different types of atoms. So chemical formulas, what they do is they are a combination of symbols that represent a particular compound or molecule. The chemical formula tells us what elements and how many elements are in that compound or molecule. So it indicates which elements are present in the compound and in what proportion. Okay, how does it indicate the proportion? How do you know the proportion of this? And I think you would know this. It's the little number that's attached to it. We call it a subscript. And that communicates how many atoms in there are present. If there's no subscript, that means that you just have one of the atom in the element. So for example, calcium carbonate, you can look at it. It's got no subscript next to the Ca, so that means there's one calcium. No subscript next to the carbon, so there's one carbon. And there's a 3 subscript, so that means there's 3 oxygens in there. Okay? So we're going to try some more activities, but that's the end of today's video.